says we're live. It always takes a second to populate. Good morning, people. I wasn't going to go live this morning, but my kids are still asleep where you are. Hey, Lefty Prof, good to see you. Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Helen. My kids are still sleeping, so I have a few minutes this morning. But we are off today. I'm going to go take them to the Water Park Hotel for one night. We're on spring break, and it was a good morning, Lynn. This is a convenient way to get something out of the spring break. Everybody's busy, and my wife's schedule doesn't align, but I think this is a good solution. Some good stuff going on. The news I woke up to today was, and let me read the name here, Juliana Stratton is the more progressive candidate who won the primary in Illinois for Senate. And Lefty Press says just got home from visiting grandson Spirit Restored. Yes, those little kids, they make us remember what is really important and what the reality is. Kind of give you a little bit of space, give you a little altitude over all these problems. But this Juliana Stratton thing is interesting. This is one of the candidates. It's one of the progressive candidates that won a nomination. And again, what we're going to see, this primary season is really, really important. There's all these well-funded establishment Democrat candidates, and some of them are going to win. I mean, let's be real. Some of the establishment supported candidates are going to win, but we're getting some progressive wins. I don't know, Cat lose. I didn't see that news. Actually, if somebody can check that for me, that must have been a Congress race. I think I reached out to somebody in Illinois, but they probably were too close to the primary to get back and talk to me. But let's just okay, one thing at a time. Let's just be happy about. I mean, a Senate seat, but by a more progressive leaning, and I mean, she still has to win the general, but it's Illinois, so I think we can be pretty hopeful there. And that's really big. That's really important. As we look at things, the more things become clear. I mean, they're flat out is election interference. White supremacists rig elections in the United States. Let's just get used to saying that. It's a fact. The entitlement of white people is the problem. Okay, it says Cat lost the primary. All right, let's turn our focus back to just Juliana Stratton then. Like we said, we're going to have some progressives aren't going to win. Hi, Courtney. Some progressives are. Let's just take our wins. Let's roll with it. And more what's becoming clear, we have to focus on the down ballot races. I talked to Lisa Hamline about that, and it's just those people that ensure fairness at every level. School board. Oh, you can't see the chat for some reason? That's odd. I see you there, Lefty Prof. I'm sorry you can't see the chat. Yesterday, I had another wonderful conversation yesterday with Ginger Murray, and she's running for Congress. This was a really interesting chat. I published it yesterday. If you guys get a chance, oh, good. Oh, there we go. It's back. Good. If you get a chance, watch the video I posted yesterday with Ginger Murray. She's running for Congress in Wisconsin's 7th district. And she said there are 3 people currently in the primary. I've interviewed Chris Armstrong. He's also in that primary. But she says that they're friends. And I'm just like, excellent. A cooperative campaign. That's exactly what we need. The third guy's name, I think, is Fred. I think she said it was Fred Ward, like the actor. But I got to double check that. But anyway, she mentioned, she's like, let's get all 3 of us on a live, and I can do that with Nick Paro, and I think that would be really fun, where we get 3 congressional candidates all running for the same seat. But what was really cool in talking to her, and it's always fun talking to these just regular candidates, not the ones that are supported. I'm every time I look at it, all these candidates who are not supported by the DNC necessarily, who are not just spokespeople for this big money, are really, really kind people of integrity. I don't know what happens to people. They get some money and they get all snitty, but you get to these real candidates. And first of all, you get the ones that are willing to come and talk to me. It's interesting. I wonder what you guys think too. I was thinking, actually, if you've watched my discussions with these candidates, my impression of myself is that I'm engaging and friendly. But do you guys think it feels like I interrogate them a little bit? I'm curious your thoughts if you've watched me talk to them, because it's not necessarily like I'm gonna and try to keep it light and try to do these things, but I also do bring up the fact that, the government is enabling child rapists and giving them money, and I don't like that our taxpayer dollars are going to child rapists. So that stuff comes up in these conversations, and I haven't necessarily. I've been just reflecting on this because if you've watched me talk to these candidates, it's not me asking them a series of questions. It's not like a traditional interview. It's just a discussion. Okay, thanks, Tamar. I'm passionate. It's a discussion, and then okay, good. Lefty says it's a serious thing. I think you treat it seriously. There's also a big element in these conversations. I do like to earn a little bit of trust when I talk to that. And that guy was wonderful, Robert People. He was very, very. It was very businesslike for him, and I try to get him to laugh. I mean, it's one of the things I like him to put him at ease and be courteous. Okay, good. Courtney says, Walter, you don't sound like you're interrogating to me. Serious questions deserve gravitas. Good word. And okay, good. And but I like it to not be like the formal sounding interview. This is a Dateline interview. It's a conversation so that these candidates can be seen as real people. But that does kind of make it open where if they might say something, like if they're relaxed a little bit, and I appreciate when they stumble a little bit and they say something that's not quite maybe not something that's so prepared. I don't like it. They're just reading a prepared speech. We don't know anything about them then. We need to have those moments where they tell us about things. And you see these kind of big money candidates try to do that. We're like, oh yeah, and then the other day, but then they have a pre-written story about their dog or some BS, and they don't take any follow-up questions because it didn't really happen. So good. Courtney says, no, it's like conversation cafe vibes. Perfect. I think that's a lovely way to talk about it. And I think that's what I'm shooting for. Yeah, Lefties. I'm so glad you got to go visit the son and grandson for 5 days. So good. I'm so happy, Lefty, that you got to do that. But another thing I wanted to talk about the gingerbread because we were having all kinds of. I realized what happened was I got my vaccine. It's 2 days ago now, my shingles vaccine, and I was just foggy. I was actually really tired yesterday too because I had that wonderful talk. I talked to you guys in the morning, which I always love, and then we did like almost a 3-hour talk with Nick Paro, and Will Fullwood was there, and Margaret Williams. I'll post that today. If you get a chance to watch that, please do. And what I'm finding too is Margaret Williams. Will has been an inspiration for me for before the election. Nick, I met him after the election. He always kind of helps center me. Margaret Williams, I haven't known as long, but when I start talking to her, she just kind of inspires me. Yeah, we were just talking and talking and talking all day long. And we covered a lot of stuff where a lot of these little pieces of information just keep floating about. And what I find with it, I do. Oh, good, Courtney. Thank you. And what I find that I do is they just keep coming up. I mean, we've got this enormous amount of things that we're dealing with right now. And I've been mainly working at this from the white supremacy angle. I try to understand and map out. I called it the bizarro boundaries. Yeah, Nick has got such a silky smooth voice and he's got a good way about him. I want to watch the replay of that. I felt I have these moments when I'm talking. It hasn't happened yet today, but sometimes I'll get talking and when like Margaret's around and she's like going like this, like yes, 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 and the hearts help too. But I'll get moments where I just kind of like check out with my conscious mind. And there was a moment when I gave my summary at the end, I was like, geez, I'm on it here. And then I'll start like finding rhymes, like just speaking and things will come out fast. And it was like the importance of what we're up against. And the more as I sit down and go through my talking points again and again and again, the more connections I'm seeing. So I'm getting stronger with my ability to just kind of discuss what's happening. And I just wanted to mention messaging again, because we see so often the messaging of like the establishment, the big money, they just come up and crush us, and a couple days ago I'd written, it's like, there's a lot more the Democrats could be doing. And people, well, what? I mean, it's kind of hard for them to do anything. They're in a minority. So they don't really have that much power. And it's because the voters didn't vote for them and they don't have power. So I'm just like, look at all the things they voted. It was the 4 votes from the Democrats siding with the Republicans to let this war continue. And it's like that constant pressure from the big money Democrats were like, well, no, we really, there's not a lot we can do. You can do a lot. And the problem is when that gets repeated a lot, regular people start repeating it too, Yeah, and Lefty says summarizing is hard, but it's like I'm learning every time I kind of go through it again. It's like then there's this, and I put it in different orders. Is it just randomly, like in discussion after discussion after discussion? It keeps coming up, and it becomes stronger. You see the connections more, and you see like the actual map. We're trying to build like this mental 3D map of what we're going through right now, and this has been it's been so freaking hard. But at the same time, it's just sort of like it's weird. It feels as if a lot. I mean, people have written very nice, very very kind comments on my articles. I read about some of the bullshit I had to put up with growing up, and it was so hard then, and it's still so hard. It's hard to have it repeat, but at the same time, it feels as if a lot of my life has prepared me for this moment. Like it's like, God damn it. It's like, this isn't going away. I guess we just have to fix it. Yeah. And Courtney just said it. Once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. It's so true. Lefty, Waj. I really want to talk to Waj. I know Waj talks with Nick. So they got something set up. So I asked him about that, repeating taglines that get repeated. Yeah. And I want to specifically entreat Waj to help me interview these candidates, because the more publicity we can get for these progressive candidates, the better it is. We can get more of them. And I told them that the fact that this Ginger Murray, she was great. She's a lawyer, passionate, 100%. And she told me in that interview, she mentioned how she'd run for office previously. And this was back when her kids were still young, but it got so heated. At one point, somebody tried to swerve her off the road. Like there was some sort of aggression with a vehicle. And she's just like, okay, I'm not going to run for office anymore. And that's that white supremacy bullshit again. They use violence. They intimidate us physically. And it's not going to go away. That's the other thing. We have to fix it. That came out in the interview yesterday. She's like, I'm retired. I prefer to just have a happy retirement, but we got to fight fascism now, and she's perfect. A lawyer running for office is perfect. And in talking to her, I mean, a lot of you kind people there, you should run for office, they say to me. And I think that's very kind. But in talking to somebody like Ginger, I'm like, this is where I need to be. I think I'm in the exact right place that I need to be, because I get to be a little bit more entertainment value and start screaming and say things in a way that's comical and funny and get some attention, but also direct attention to the people that are really got a better temperament. I'll admit it. Ginger Murray's got a much better temperament than I do for holding elected office. And I don't frankly trust myself either, to be honest. I think we need to get more women in the elected positions. All right, let me read some of this here. Waj will be on intelligence. Okay, it's good. It's this afternoon. Good. And I talked to Nick about talking to Waj about that. Yeah, he's got a bigger following than me. Let's get more attention for these wonderful progressive candidates. And I told Ginger, it's like, there's 3 of you running. You guys are doing a cooperative primary. That's brilliant. You're all going to elevate your name recognition. When you're done, run for state office, run for school board, run for county clerk. Just get an office, please. We need people of integrity at every level of government. And that's really the key. That's the thing that people, I think, are missing, that we can transform our government. And part of the problem is how the establishment Democrat, oh, come on, now all the hearts went away. I was watching all those lovely hearts. Whoever was hitting the button quit. And part of the established Democrats is that they don't want primaries. We need primaries. Primaries are the healthiest thing we can have. And it's because of their, thanks, now they're back. And they don't want this healthy government. They want control. They want to anoint their candidates and dictate to the representatives in the states. It's absurd, this mechanism that they have in place. It is absurd. It costs way too much money, and we are the ones who have to pay for it. And all we need to do, run for the primaries, get name recognition, run for the down ballot races at a subsequent election, because a couple of years go by pretty fast. Get good people at every position. Make sure we have free and fair elections, because we currently do not have free and fair elections. That doesn't mean you shouldn't vote, but we do have to recognize that. And we have to start holding the lawless accountable, which we also don't, through some bizarre permutation of what decorum means. We have to start arresting people when they are engaged in voter fraud. All right, let me read through this here. Tamar says, where were they when, they refused when I don't like to say his name, Narcan Leon. I just don't say their names. I don't like to taint my work with the names of all these criminals. And I also, let it not be said that I spoke the names of the current Orange Skid Mark, who's in the Oval Office. I'll call him that. And Narcan Leon, because he's a drug addict. I don't want to call him his real name, but Tamar says, where were they when Narcan Leon broke in? They refused to come in as they were on their break. I noticed their weakness. Yeah. Oh, and this idea that they just submit more and more, and it really is us. We are the ones who have to demand that they do recounts. The regular people, and we have to push back because it's that big money messaging. The messaging is the key. The big money messaging, well, just deal with it. Just deal with it. The Democrats are perfectly happy to lose because they get more funding then. And that has to change. Waj is definitely behind replacing existing Democrats with progressive fighters. Would be great conference. I would love to talk to him. I got a message from somebody who's involved with the Courage Candidates. There's this organization called the Courage Candidates. Some of you saw my talk with Chris Bennett. He was awesome. He looked like Clark Kent. I mean, he was really this handsome young man, and he was so. I mean, his message was so spot on. It's like he's the kind of guy you want your daughter to date, and I have 2 daughters, so I know he was perfect. I'm just like awesome, and but I got a message from whoever's in charge of the group. Kiera, I think is her name. She's in charge of this group called the Courage Candidates, who are running on the impeachment platform. And they say, hey, we'd like you to talk with her. I'm like, because consider how many Congress seats there are. I don't know the number. Is it 435 or something? I want to say. So if I interviewed 2 candidates a day until the primaries, I wouldn't interview every single candidate because sometimes there's multiple candidates running for these seats. But the more I can talk to, the more we can get the message out. And also the more I can influence them. Because I told Ginger, I'm like, start talking about billionaire welfare. I mean, the people in your district in Wisconsin 7, they're tired of sending their money and having to endure economic terrorism. That's another phrase I like to use. Why should we be the ones that we have to work hard and send all our money to DC and they hand it out to these billionaires because their businesses fail? They can mortgage their assets. They can find money that way. I had a business. When we were short of money, that's what we had to do. You get out a loan. You don't just ask for free money from taxpayers, people who are struggling, so you get to continue to live some life of luxury. That's bullshit. And the establishment Democrats don't like to talk like that because they're all funded by these billionaires who get that free money. This all has to change. But it is happening. I'm seeing it happen. We've been talking a lot about the third-party candidates. That, too, is important, particularly in places where Democrats refuse to run. But we are seeing progressives win a Senate seat. I mean, she hasn't won the Senate seat. She's won the primary. Juliana, I didn't write it right. Juliana Stratton. Huge. That's huge. Even one. I mean, think of how much Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has done all by herself. Think how much Bernie's done all by himself. We get a couple more like that. If you get up to like 10, and there actually are a lot of progressive candidates out there. They're just not as high profile as AOC. Bob Dana said it's like over 100 are already in office. So I think he said I don't know if that was in Congress. Anyway, let's celebrate every little bit of momentum that we get today. Seeing that was good. I mean, it would have been nice if Jasmine Crockett had got in too, but we know that Texas is a very rigged state in terms of elections. All right, let me keep reading here. Waj is definitely behind. I read that already. Yes, I got to talk to him. Tycoon gambling is online. Lefty Pref says they don't want us to pick correct, and that is so important. And that's why those candidates won't talk to me. And it's kind of a baseline, like I've reached out in Wisconsin's 3rd district. The first person I talked to was Laura Benjamin. I met her at a cultural fair. She was happy to come on and talk to me. And I just said, I've got a small platform, but I'm willing to elevate you if you want to come up and talk. From the comfort of your own home, you can be sitting in a car on the way to a rally. You can talk to me whenever you want to talk to me for 15 minutes, and people will see you, and maybe you'll get some donations, but we'll get the word out there. And you just never know when you create these clips. Sometimes thousands of people see these clips and they get uploaded automatically to YouTube. There's weird comments on YouTube, by the way. I mean, the people on there are just strange. It makes you relieved to come back to Substack where there are rational people, because you jump on YouTube and you're like, what is wrong with these people? But I've been telling them. And so Laura Benjamin was the first. I reached out to Rebecca Cook. She's running. She hasn't talked back. And she's the endorsed DC candidate, the Washington candidate. And Washington told Emily Berge not to run. And I've interviewed Emily Berge a bunch of times. She's called me on the phone. I was freaking out because ICE was supposed to be in the area. And I called her up. And she got back to me and talked to me calm again. So I appreciated that. I was just frantic on the phone with her the other day. And I mean, we need representatives like that. Not ones that just completely ignore us, because if they talk to somebody like me, and Courtney was lovely and said it's a, like a coffee shop talk, they're afraid to do that. And I just haven't met anybody who said anything I strongly disagree with, so I haven't had any hard interviews, but we'll see what happens. Kenny says, how long do you think it will take to rebuild our government after we get rid of these dirtbag Republican and the establishment Dems out? My guess, Kenny, is this is our lifetime work. This is a lifetime work. I think prior to this election, I didn't realize that, but we are recalibrating our thinking. A big thing, I wrote an article not too long ago about how it was kind of based on Ellie Leonard, how she's getting the same rejection letters for her manuscripts that I always got, like verbatim, the exact same. And I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to reject Ellie Leonard's book because she's sitting there on like 500,000 email subscribers. It makes zero sense that a mainstream publisher would get a submission from somebody with that big of a following and just be like, nah. And then they send them a form rejection letter. The messaging, that's what I'm talking about, is the messaging. And the answer is they just don't want to give any more of a platform to somebody like Ellie Leonard. And they don't want to give a platform to somebody like me because I'm a threat to amassing wealth. We're seeing it crack. The messaging that's out there, it has been astonishingly fast. So getting back to Kenny's question, how long is it going to take? It's been astonishingly fast, but we need to just completely recalibrate how we think about a lot of things. A lot of our just basic assumptions. And you'll notice when you have something, and this applies to me, you'll notice you have something to rethink when you get frustrated, when you feel those frustrations, when somebody says something that's just factual and it provokes frustration in you, like that anger you get when you're in a comment thread and you're fighting with somebody over just nonsense. It applies to me. When sometimes you just have to sit and say, why is this making me so mad? And then you have to dig deeper. You have to get into your brain and you have to purge that negative white supremacy conditioning that you didn't know was in there. And we've got to do that in the entire United States. I mean, we got to do this. We will know we have made progress when we've removed the Star Spangled Banner as the national anthem. That's one of the things, because that is a racist song. You get to the third verse and it's about murdering escaped slaves. The Star Spangled Banner was made the national anthem when the KKK had a huge number of congressional seats. And this was, like in the 20s and 30s. Prior to that, there was no national anthem. They would play American the Beautiful. They'd play a bunch of things. And this is the Star Spangled Banner is a dog whistle. And I mentioned today in the article I wrote today, I grew up in the era of the Dukes of Hazzard. That is white supremacy conditioning. And people think that, and they're like, what? That's crazy. That's just a kid's show. The vehicle they drove was the General Lee. It had the Confederate flag on the top. It played Dixie. It was about a pair of good old boys who constantly broke the law. And they also both lusted after their own sister. This is as much white supremacy conditioning as you can imagine. And we don't even recognize it. I mean, you should look at the Dukes of Hazzard and recoil. You should feel sick to your stomach when you see that show. But I was just a little kid like, oh, yeehaw, they're jumping the car over the gorge. That's cool. They got explosive arrows. And that's what we have to fix. That's the messaging. And unfortunately, as smart as the left thinks it is, or as much as as hoity as they are, as condescending as they are, they surrender the messaging. And a lot of it too, I wrote an article recently about this, how I guess it's not on Substack yet. It'll be out this week. But this kid I knew growing up, and his mom ended up in a relationship with his friend. So, the friend was still in high school, and it ended up on one of these like salacious talk shows. And I remember our town was just kind of excited about it. It's like, oh, we're finally on the map. And then you watch it, and it's like, the liberal elite of this talk show just condescending. And it was just like, somebody needs to step in and help, because what's clearly wrong, but they're just like, oh my God, how can you guys be like that? How can you be like that? And that's really frustrating to me, because I grew up, and I've said before, in a house my parents built with no resources and no help. And it was just with nobody extended a helping hand. And when I finally got to college, I couldn't make it. I dropped out. Even after preparing myself by reading books. And I've said before, they are terrified of the people who read. I was talking about this yesterday with my wife. If you just get a library card, but that's why they're trying to shut down the libraries. They want to burn all the books. All you have to do is read all those classic books, and you are fortified against white supremacy. And I guess that's probably what ultimately saved me. That set the seed for being able to grow. But still, when I got into more of a liberal environment, I wasn't able to. It was up against the wall because there's so much they're so condescending, and you just need help. And I mean, I guess this fits in with what we've been talking about, shaming the people who are white supremacy versus there are some that you help. But I think part of the problem, I was thinking about this yesterday, is we think of everything on like a line, right? Like we think and this is the oversimplification of binary thinking, is another thing that's leveraged to control us. We think of things as a line, where their one action is appropriate. We think of it, on the left, and an action that's inappropriate is on the right. We should think of it more as a mirror, where like the real image is the appropriate one, and then the inappropriate one is what's reflected in the mirror. I raise my right hand, the reflection raises the left hand. So it's folded, and is this making sense what I'm trying to say? Because so often when you're just like, this is what we need to do, but there's like a slight inversion that's completely a complete corruption. And it's because we train ourselves to think binary, like the good thing is over here and the bad thing is over here. When it's not, it's like it's an inversion where the good thing is here and the bad thing is here. But other than that, they are identical. And just switching that thought in our minds, I guess that's a model I'm still working on. I'll have to write an article about that to formulate my thoughts a little bit better. But I mean, we were talking about how humiliation. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking today, it's like white supremacy is when the rich white kid is upset because he gets a 25 on the test and he wants to think he's the smartest in the classroom, and he's mad because the brilliant black woman got 100%. And so the teacher says, oh, it hurts his feelings, so we'll just say that he's the best. And we never think about the people who have actually achieved. And that's a pretty basic way of describing racism, right? And so, but that's like, you have to humiliate that kid. And that's the case. It's like you humiliate the kid who actually doesn't deserve to be celebrated because he needs to be motivated to be better. But instead, we humiliate the brilliant person by not giving them the reward they earned. So those are the flip sides of those things. So I guess I got off on a tangent answering Kenny's question. I call him the blob, the orange skid mark. People like that one. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. Yeah, this is my kind of exploration day. So I guess these are the rough draft moments. So I appreciate all you guys for showing up. Yeah, I kind of walking through a lot of ideas. They'll appear again. Courtney says, that was a great discussion with Chris Bennett. I bookmarked that website immediately. Not that I personally can do anything with it. Couragefordemocracy.com. Couragefordemocracy.com. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get in touch with a lot more of these candidates. Things are heating up as the primaries come up. Maybe it'll be just five daily discussions with candidates, and they will hear the point is that they will hear my phrasing, like billionaire welfare. Let's stop just talk like that. We have to cut down the messaging because so many Americans are brainwashed into just having reverence for billionaires. And that's what we have to undo. We have to get into the minds. We have to get in and make people willing to question, because people even now, they say, well, it's okay to be a billionaire. It's okay to be rich. That has to go, and just that impulse. So many people you meet every day as you walk around, you meet people who say things like that. But, it's okay to be rich. He worked hard. No, he didn't. You don't know that. That's an assumption. And somebody said before, once you see the patterns, then you can undo it. And that's the pattern. That's one of the tricks about white supremacy. They have all these patterns, but they also have a level of camouflage. You're not even allowed to talk in white on white crime. There's all these things. The Scott Jennings and his resting white supremacy face. You bring something up and he's just like, we already know we don't talk about that. No, that's been established. That's traditional values. That's traditional thought. That's our cultural awareness. That's our cultural beliefs. And it's just, and they switch it on you where you feel guilty for even exploring some realm of thought. And that's where white supremacy, that's where racism is hidden. That's where exploitation and oppression is hidden. So we have to have courage. I love that they're called Courage for Democracy, couragefordemocracy.com. And push through those places where we're told. I get a lot of pressure. I get pressure from both sides. So that's why I always say to you guys, I love you so much for being here and showing up and validating me. We are gaining so much power, though. Can you feel the momentum build? And just as somebody said, the more we go through it, the more we fortify. We have our ideas. We're like, here's our theory of how things work. We go through it again and again and again. We look for weakness. Lefty Prof has been wonderful saying, hey, I don't think you're quite right on this. All right, let me change the phrasing a little bit. Let me fix it. I see your criticism you're making. Let me fix it. Now it's stronger. Then we go forward again. We're stronger and stronger. Now we're telling the candidates this. Candidates, win or lose, they'll be on debate stages, with their fellow Democrats. So the message will go from me to them, to the fellow candidates. Once they go from the fellow candidates, they go to the general debate against the Republican. They'll speak about it again. People will watch those debates. Those words will become part of our narrative. I've seen this happen. It's happened as I used to tell jokes, and 6 months later, those jokes would turn up on night shows. I would see, the late night talk shows. That's my joke. I told that joke 6 months ago, and so I do know I have this influence and impact on the world. I don't get any credit for it, but I do have it. I know I do, and it's being applied well now. All right, let me keep going here. Lefty says, if they can't talk to you, they can't talk to us. I mean, thank you, but I mean, yeah. We got to break through that wall that these representatives think that we work for them. They work for us. They work for us. And we have to make ourselves recognize that too. They are our servants. We are not their servants. They do not get to lecture to us. We get to lecture to them. And we have to change that. Break down this whole reverence, for the patriarch bullshit where they can do no wrong and we just have to accommodate all their flaws. No, they have to listen to us. They have to be accountable. And I'm seeing all these candidates that I talk to are like that. Very few of the candidates currently in office are. That can change things quickly. So, as what Kenny said, it could be a lot faster than I anticipate. I'm just going to assume the worst and just work and not speculate too much because that's just energy. My speculation energy needs to go elsewhere. But I do appreciate that Kenny asked that. Yeah. And Lefty says, if they can't talk to regular people, we want people to listen to us. We absolutely do. And we have to establish that. And more people are becoming emboldened. Is that the right word? But they're figuring out, they're recognizing you have a right to ask for that. You have a right for that. Anybody who's been in an abusive relationship, you don't have to just submit and be the servant of the person who claims that they love you, but is really just there to abuse you. It's hard to talk people out of that. Those trauma bonds, those are hard to break. We have to do that on a national level. And we're making progress, though. And I think the membrane has been stretched so thin, all the atrocities, there's just so many. And their idea of flood the zone, they thought they were going to do that. They think it's a blitzkrieg. They're just going to keep us on our heels, put us constantly in check. But all that's happened is they didn't recognize that and people like Shane Yerrick is great at this. They can recognize all the relationships and all the patterns once you see the patterns. And then it's like, oh, well, this just what you've done. You tried to intimidate me with your blitzkrieg, but instead you just revealed, all the clues that indicate how guilty you are and how deep the rot truly goes. Because prior to this, we could put our head in the sand and people would be dismissed. Oh, it's not that bad. I mean, there's not this global child trafficking network made up of rich bankers and professors. You're being ridiculous. Now we know there is. We know there is. And with that bit of evidence, further doors are unlocked. Further avenues of exploration become apparent. We're walking through them, and you guys are such a huge help. You're motivating me, just listening to me. I want to say, too, and I'm getting off track. I got to get to all these questions again. But I just appreciate the brilliant people who take their time to listen to me. It's so flattering. I try not to think about it because it's intimidating. You guys do intimidate me. And Ginger Murray said she found me. She's the congressional candidate I interviewed yesterday. She said I was a retired judge who suggested that she get in contact with me. And I just think that's fascinating because that's like, I bet that guy's got some stories to tell. But these are accomplished people. A retired judge? Holy shit. And so this is a person who spends his time in the morning listening to me because he thinks there's some value in what I have to say. I am almost overwhelmed by that. But what I'm trying to do is just courageously go forward and just if something is true, we follow that thread, even if it alienates people. And that's a hard thing too. That's why I have to constantly ask for new people to become supporters because I know that I do touch on feelings often, but we have to because we're so conditioned and indoctrinated to think certain things that as we're breaking down those boundaries, sometimes you touch on sensitive places for people. And I don't begrudge people for following me and supporting me for a while, and then being like, oh, I'm out because I maybe did too much progress too fast. New people come in to fill that gap, and I appreciate that. But it's stunning. I mean, the fact that a retired judge, I just really, honestly, I never thought that would be the case. And at some point, hopefully after this whole horror show has ended, I want to just dial back and do like Lake Wobegon and do like a new version of Lake Wobegon and just tell little stories about growing up in a way that's kind of folksy and cute and just spend my time maybe a little bit more time writing rather than just doing this kind of manic exploration, because we got this just enormous flow of information that just nobody can process. This is taking every ounce of my intellectual capacity to just process everything that's happening all the time. And I get so tired. I just have to crash out and sleep for 4 or 5 hours at sometimes. And this, in one ways, it's just defiance keeping us going, because it's like, to hell no, are we going to let them continue with this? And it's like in the old days when they programmed, in the 80s in the arcade era, where they made all these video games like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man. And they just, when they were programming, it just came to a kill screen because they thought a human being couldn't process the algorithm so fast that nobody could ever get to that point. And what they discovered was the human mind is capable of tackling that. And, just the way things are playing out right now, I do feel like I've had a combination of, personal ability and the things that I've gone through in my life help me stay on top of all that's going through right now. I'm not there yet, though, but there are cracks in this veil of oppression that we've had put on us. There are cracks. I'm seeing some daylight. I think we're getting closer to understanding. And as we continue to walk through all the things we know, you walk through it again. You walk through it again. You put the post-it notes on the wall and you put strings between them, figuring this stuff out, because there's something that's lingering just beyond the borders of our perception. There's a realization, and once we have it, we will have greater power. But I know even in the process of this, we are gaining more power. Don't be results-oriented. Trust the process. Go forward. We'll see what happens 6 months from now. It'll be interesting. I'll be looking back on this video 6 months and be like, oh, you innocent thing. All the things you hadn't yet realized. Oh, and all you guys are there to help us. Okay, so let me keep going through here. I got rolling on a talk. Good morning, beautiful people. I love that comment. Thank you, B. Those comments mean so much. Just the appreciative comments. When I see them as comments on notes, sometimes I don't see them, but they help so much. I appreciate that. Kenny said that's an excellent point. We have been brainwashed with white supremacist bullshit. Yep, and that's an ongoing thing to such an extent that people just don't even realize it. And it's just, we'll keep exposing that bit by bit. We'll keep walking through it. And some of you too, it's like, even when I say something, it seems to make sense. Revisit what I said in 6 months after you've thought on it, percolated. I like to say that, percolated on it for 6 months. You'll gain new insights 6 months later. The first time it's like when I was taking my college physics classes, our teacher said, he's like, we just teach this the same thing as the first year of masters. It's like, we just go over this again. That's all it is. And he's like, I didn't even really understand it until we went through it the second time. And that's what we have to do. In my work as a writer, I've always tried to I'll write 1,000-word essay and that's going to change the world. And that's not how education works. You have to repeat the message. So I guess maybe I've undermined my understanding or my belief in writing a little bit, but it's like that messaging is so important. Communication is so important. We're getting there, making progress. Courtney says, I think reparation will be required before progress. Get his name off buildings and money. Yep. And I mean, we're going to have to claw back all the money that was stolen right now. There's all these crimes being made. They're looting the treasury. They're looting the future of the United States. All these, but we know where the money is. All the trillionaires and billionaires. I guess there's no trillionaires yet. All the billionaires have it. You can look. The national debt is like 40 trillion. The top 1% have 40 trillion. Clearly, that's where the money is. Take it back from them. And all we have to do, I mean, we have eminent domain. We have the power to do that. We just need to get good progressives in office. Put a limit. And you guys, again, I always say, don't support anybody with a net worth, let's just say $1 million. People with $1 million are fine, And I see so many people that are supporting, like I looked up Robert Reich. I mean, he's doing great work, but he shouldn't have a paywall on his work because he's trying to save democracy. Don't put a paywall on there. If this is the important things that need to be said, why are you blocking it? People from hearing it. We need to change the messaging in the whole nation. So it has to be free. And again, that doesn't apply to people like Elizabeth Selick-LaRue, who's selling a service. Those of you who claim to be fighting fascism need to have your content free, like I have my content free. Yeah, but he's already worth like $5 million. He gets all kinds of pensions and shit. So I need your money more than he does. Yeah, and he's doing good work. That's one of the ones. And I say nothing about people like Adam Kinzinger, who I have to. He's like backwards. He works backwards. I have to overcome the bullshit he puts out there because he's not telling the truth, and he is emphasizing and fortifying the mechanism of lies that has caused this whole shit show. All right, Courtney says, yeah, I got Courtney's comment already. Good morning, B. Morning, B. I like that. We are all born into white supremacy. Every American is. It's American cultural identity. It's the shame of this nation. American exceptionalism is just another way of saying American supremacy. And it's a cancer. I just wrote a title. I'm going to write this article yet, but it was something about, exploring the sexual violence of lonely white men, and that's what white supremacy is. I watched Sinners the other day. That's a haunting movie. It's kind of lingering with me. But the scene where the white vampires show up at the what do they call it? The party that they're having. And they're so endearing, and it's because they are so desperate. They intend to come in and murder everybody. That's their intention. But even so, they can pivot in their minds and just tap into that loneliness they feel, because loneliness is an element of white supremacy. And I talked about that too. And I realized that the other day. I've written an article about it. I don't think it's published yet. But when I was growing up, it was just loneliness was the constant thing. Loneliness was the constant feeling, because you're forced into this cruel mindset. And that's why I get kind of hot sometimes when people are like, well, don't, we're not going to change them by doing this or that. And it's like, I've walked that path. I mean, I was born into that, where you're treated through abuse and cruelty, and they force you to believe that. And I had asthma, so I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't eat. I was so thin, I had to wear suspenders because I couldn't. I mean, this is how much it tormented me to have that put upon me. And I know then what it means is I know how they think. I know how the white supremacist mind works. I don't like to go back there. I don't like to explore it, but I do know where the weaknesses are. I mean, it's traumatic for me to go back and have people ask me questions and think about it, because it's all in this fog in the distant past. But that's where I know, like, that bizarro boundaries concept, like I'm talking about, because they have this whole set of beliefs that they install that make it impossible for them to grow. And this is why I know that we have to humiliate them. You have to break down those boundaries. You have to destroy it. And that's their identity. That's their self-identity, is these bizarro boundaries that keep them trapped in this miserable terrain of loneliness, And it's so desperate. And this is what's tragic about it, is they'll come forward and we see these white men, and they're just so desperate. Like, it's the Travis Bickle example again from Taxi Driver. He's so desperate to make a connection, but he's got this set of things in his brain that make it impossible. And yet he tries to hide it. And he's like, I'm just lonely. I'll just, the only thing I can show is my loneliness. I'm lonely, appealing to the compassion of others. And then they're like, something's weird about you. Then it's violence, emotional violence, physical violence, sexual violence, instant pivot. They really are those vampires. And this idea of saying, we can't push back against them, but they'll become more entrenched, isn't true. Because if you try to be compassionate, all you do is keep them in that state where they are willing to come get something from you. Oh yeah, I'm your friend. They want to just stay close as they're just tormenting you. And you have to get them where you crush that identity, that cruel identity, and teach them. I mean, we have that line, you are not the worst thing you ever did. And white supremacists don't understand that. They fuse their identity with their mistakes, because that's what they constantly repeat, that they can only win. They have to be superior. And anything that's a flaw, it burns them. And that's why we saw it with the orange skid mark. He lost in 2020. A loss on that level, a humiliation on that level, is really hard for white supremacists to take. And they have to erase it. And that's why he just talks about it. That was rigged. That was rigged. That was rigged. Because he can't face it. And so if you force him to face the fact that he lost, that does humiliate him, yes. But you have to crush that sense of self, that sense of identity that makes them think that they can never have a failure. And this is why I try to make such an emphasis on these various talks when I make a mistake, to apologize and to take accountability. I don't like it. I don't like it when I do something wrong. I would much prefer to be perfect all the time. But it's just much easier, and it scares me to get caught back up in that ego, that contorted ego of thinking you must always be right, and you just deny the realities for which you are wrong. It's disempowering. And so I guess I kind of do live in a constant state of humiliation, and you have to find peace with humiliation. Maybe that's a good way of putting it. You need to recognize, because it's always when somebody stomps into the room and they're like, I'm the all-time winner. Everything I do is great. Everything I do is perfect. that's charismatic. You see it and you're like, okay, that's cool. I'd like to be like that. And a person who comes forward and is like, well, I make mistakes. I know I did something wrong. That's not really inspiring, is it? And I guess that's maybe the cultural shift we have to make, where we have to learn that the person who comes forward and says, hey, I make mistakes. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to be better. We have to learn as a culture that those are the people we should lead, or we should allow it to lead us, and that we should follow, and not the people who come and lie and present this false reality of how they're perfect. Because those people that lie, when they actually do get caught in a failure that they can't deny, which everybody sees, they collapse. And a person who is willing to be humble and admit fault, when they get caught in that moment, they are able to absorb it and learn from it and do better and continue. And I guess that's a good little that was a good little rant there. I hope that I hope that clarified some things, but I think that's important. That's an important thing that I keep talking about, but that's really an emphasis of what we're talking about, or what I've been talking about. Last time I said or stood the Pledge of Allegiance was in 1990. They play it all the time, and it's just that cultural, like, oh, that's fine, and we have to change that too. Courtney says the ad Save America movement have been running. If the Dems could get on board and run stuff like it. Yeah, and that what's his name? Anthony. I think his name is Anthony. Let me find him. He's on my Signal. He's been posting excellent things. I have to talk to him. I forgot his name. My brain wigs out every now and then. Where is it? I just wrote him. Anthony C. Okay. But he's on Substack, and he's been just talking. It's like the Democrats, all they have to do is speak truth, and they just refuse. Their messaging is so awful. And it's by design, because they don't really want to win. They're much more content to rig the system and get their donation money. Oh, yeah, The Dukes of Hazzard, it's called. It's a show that was popular in the 80s. Awful show. White supremacy conditioning. Lefty Prep says, here in Virginia, the Red Hats are sending out misleading postcards with pics of Abigail Spanberger as if she is against us redistricting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the propaganda. And, Lefty, that's an interesting comment, because consider how we do learn as a species. Like, I remember growing up, you're watching ads, and at some point your brain just doesn't process the ad anymore. It just kind of turns off. Like, I'm not even going to watch that. Like, we have these protections where we recognize things are lies, and it starts to come into place. And I think the Republicans, even though they're spending all this money on all this BS and sending out all this propaganda, I think we're getting to the point where the American public has been indoctrinated against, or maybe is going to develop some kind of evolutionary response where we start to recognize that those are fake. I mean, I know that when I get AI comments, I recognize them pretty quickly. It's like, oh, that's a fake comment. I think more and more people are getting to the point where they recognize those things. Okay, Kenny mentioned it. The horseshoe effect. Is that what I was talking about when I was talking about the inversion? That's a good title. I should use that as a title as I write about this. Yes, Walter, good. I like the yes. I've seen it happen too. This is a time tempering of American democracy. Yeah, it's a recalibration of the American mind. A recalibration of the American mind. That's what we're going through. I'll forget that if I don't write it down. Of the American mind. I can't read this. My writing is so awful. Joined. Listening and not chatting, but good morning. Good morning, Neurodivergent. I always appreciate having you here. Neurodivergent, somebody who keeps me accountable, and I appreciate that. We have this. Neurodivergent mentioned it so often, and I had another person named Michelle. She was in Australia, where I was in the habit. It's just, we become habitual. We're just like, well, that person, and you'll say like stupid, and you just have to train yourself not to do that. It's like, it's not a cognitive issue. What we're up against right now is people who are deliberately ignorant. They've made a choice. And I mean, just the conditioning that goes on is so important. So neurodivergence has been very helpful, because I get in this manic state where I'm just kind of like spewing ideas that come to my mind. And a lot of that is because I've spent a lot of time writing, and I've created all these kind of patterns of words, which I can grab and put together. And it is important to kind of reevaluate and go through, okay, this word I need to reconsider. There's problems with this word that I didn't see before. And that's just been so helpful. It's an ongoing process, though. I still make mistakes. I catch myself making those mistakes. I think I'm getting a little bit better. I hope Neurodivergent feels that I'm getting a little bit better on things like that. It's just we have to think about these things. And so much of that is installed into us, where we say things that are as misrepresentations of our reality. The more closely we can actually reflect what we are dealing with, the more empowered we become. So I've really appreciated neurodivergence comments. Yeah, I'm running on defiance fumes. Heck yeah, I'm just going to survive this out of spite. Yeah. Howard said yes, a lot more damage and pain to come. We have to limit it as much as possible. I mean, but it's going to be ongoing. There's never really going to be a moment, not until every person is clothed and every person has food and every person has access to education. They attack education, but it's really basic what they do. We fortify ourselves. We have to break down all these lies that they've established as truth in the United States. And we can accelerate. Change can happen really fast. I mean, yeah, we still have a criminal in the Oval Office who's using the power of that office to murder kids and help pedophiles. It's just absurd when you think about it. They've not arrested one person on the Epstein list, not one. And the fact, but it's not going away. And when I talked about it the other day with Ginger Murray, please go watch that video with Ginger Murray. Actually, if you have, please restack it. And if you can cross post it, you can click on the little button. It'll send that thing. You can write a little thing in and send it to your newsletter list. I would really, really love it. I would get more. I think I would get more of these candidates coming on to talk to me if you guys helped just cross posting all those things. I mean, if we could get all 50 of you cross posting the that article or that interview where people could see it and talk about it, and that will encourage these candidates. They'll start seeing, oh, look, I get all these donations when I talk to Walter, and then more will come and talk. But we have to expand because I know you guys are not, I know you guys all don't have endless funds, but we're getting there. I mean, the more we can expand the messaging, it just really helps. And if you have 100 subscribers, if you have 10 subscribers, 10 more views makes a big difference. 10, and all of them can do restacks because it's pretty infrequent. So let them know. So we create this chain, this chain of cross posts. Everybody does it. Let me challenge you to do that. Go cross post that article or that interview I did, that discussion I did with Ginger Murray, and let's see. And as you cross post it, tell the people you cross posted to also cross post it, and maybe we'll get to a point where it gets 100,000 views, because I'm certainly not getting help from the algorithm. And this is a way, those of you, I know everybody's facing economic terrorism. If you can't support me financially, those cross posts really, really, really do help. Let's just keep expanding. And the more of these people that come and talk to us, the better chance we have electing progressives that will then get us universal health care. That's how this works. We build on each other. So thank you for all that. Let me keep going. Hi. Hello, James. You give us so much to percolate on. I like that phrase. Paywalls, guys like Lemon. Yeah. I mean, Acosta, there's no reason. Those guys are worth millions of dollars. So there's no reason to sponsor those guys. They're fine. And it's like, it's really the voices, the small voices, the people with their back against the wall economically that need your support. I always say we're the canaries in the coal mine, and they deliberately squeeze us out. They want to push us out because they don't want these messages in there. But just consider how much you get from this, how much more power you have. The guys like Acosta and they're doing good work, but they are still beholden because that system appears to have worked for them. They were conditioned within that system. I've always been outside of it. I was always been on the not side looking in, banging on the wall with a hammer, So it's just a different kind of message, and I deserve to be heard too. So again, thank you for your support. Let me see what this says. I think they put a paywall up to restrict the bots. You know what? I don't buy that. Nope. I don't have a paywall. I mean, I deal with bots. So that's just another reason. It's more important to me that good people get a chance to read the things I have to say than it is. But you don't have to. You could do it. You could put a paywall just on the chat. You don't have to put a paywall on the article. We need to have the important comments about how to save democracy. Those have to be available. Otherwise, you're not really serious about defeating fascism. Courtney says, it's good to watch Sinners again because I feel like you can't catch all the messages. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. I think what's interesting about that movie is I was more interested in these things I just kind of mentioned, and I have to kind of walk through it again. But I was more interested in just like the dynamic, like the black churches and going to Chicago, like all the little things. And then like the vampire thing was almost like frivolous. And I thought we were going to have it just be like, oh, well, this is the Klan we were talking about. We just presented them but then they actually had the Klan as a separate entity in there. We need more movies where people just murder the Klan. That would be good. I mean, consider all the movies have been where Nazis are the bad guys. We need these movies to just expose Klan members for just like the weak and cowardly and worthless ideology that it is. People just don't understand how cruel and how inept that belief system is, and we need to kind of have this national catharsis of purging the nation of them. Yeah, that's something, and there's a deliberate reason that Hollywood doesn't do that, because they're part of it. They're in on it. It's oligarchical in media. They don't publish the books. I'm sure books like that have been written. They haven't been published. I was saying before about how Elliot Leonard gets the same rejection letter as I do. They don't want that content available to people. Bonnie, paywalls at this time really turned me off. We need to all unite and share our wisdom and skills. Yeah, I mean, what's the money about at this point? I mean, especially the ones with like $5 million already. It's like we're working so that there's not complete societal collapse. Why are you paywalling things? Because in 6 months, there's one of the outcomes of this is that like the US dollar just completely becomes worthless, and we're like fighting each other for food in the street. So it just doesn't make sense what they're doing. I mean, that's so tone deaf. But that's the problem with those rich people. Those rich people aren't in the fight. They just aren't. Hello, all you nice people, Lefty Prof or humility. Humility is what we need. B says, Sinners have been with me since watching Sunday night. Remix missing some of Clan. They traded for mission into Clan. Yeah, I mean, that true history of the United States, we teach a redacted version of the United States. It's as redacted as the Epstein files. I keep saying that. And you teach the truth, and all of a sudden everything becomes clear. I read only about 50 pages of, I've read more of it, but in the first 50 pages of Reconstruction in Black America by W.B. Du Bois, it's like, oh, that just sits into place. Click, click, click. It's like, this is true. This is true. There's not stuff where you're like, huh? Even when I was 10, you're reading something that doesn't make sense. This is clearly a lie. And you're like, huh? And they just want to push you through that and browbeat you so that you don't recognize, like, something about this isn't right. You don't have time. Economic terrorism. You're too busy with your back against the wall to reflect on how unjust this is. We're never going to talk about this again. All those things. And when you actually read the truth, it wipes all that away. Like it like 1% of truth wipes out 99% of the lies. It's just a little bit of it. And that's why this whole mechanism of oppression is so absurd. It's so easy to collapse. We just have to make that effort. And we are making it right now. And we can make this tremendous leap forward. That's one of the positives I kind of hope for. Because as we break these things down and move forward, positive change can happen faster than you believe, but there's no even point of worrying about when it's going to happen, because then that sets a date and you have all these expectations. Just stay the course, do the work, act with integrity, and good things will happen. Yeah, we need re-education like Germany did. That is going to be a great model for us to follow. There's no reason we shouldn't be looking at other countries and the programs that other countries use and how effective they are and implementing those programs here. These collective nations, they're all case studies. How are they doing? What are they doing? How are they fixing this problem? Let's do a similar program here. Let's adapt it to fit our needs. The fact that we don't do things like that is just ridiculous. We have to rewrite curriculum, get rid of vouchers, invest a bunch of that war money. Yeah, that's absolutely 100% believe. We got to get to the point. Yeah, like I said yesterday, we already are at the point where we aren't even lamenting the loss of life when we drop bombs on schools and kill little girls in foreign nations. We have to get to that point, and then we have to keep going and get to the point where we don't build the bombs in the first place. That's what we need to do. Neurodivergent says, thank you. Tired this morning. Feedback limited today. That's fine. We'll catch it. I'll keep making mistakes. I'm trying my best, but your feedback always helps. Okay. He's going back and forth. Good, Howard. Thank you. Hi, Kat. And hopefully, Kat, we'll be able to talk. I'm doing a thing with my kids today and tomorrow, but maybe on Friday. Friday would be better for me. I do hope I get a chance to talk with you. And Rachel, I've been meaning to do that. If you guys are on Thursday, maybe I'll be able to drop in. We'll see how it goes. Can't guarantee it, though. Thank you, Walter, for all of your innate wisdom and generosity and sharing it. And I'm working through it. I mean, right now, we're just trying to figure it out. We have that, and you guys help. Thank you for being there. And it's the comments that help me kind of build on this. Otherwise, I'd just be stewing in my own juices. So I get these comments and it's like, okay, let's think about that direction. Let's think about that direction. Going in different directions. Things get connected because it is all connected. We're making progress. It's a big problem, but it's like we're trying to map out I mean, it's bigger than the world, what we're trying to map out. It's all these we're trying to map out our ideologies and the things we innately believe, and separating the things that are true from what are false, and just recognizing the slight inversions that turn a good idea into a bad one. It's not, it's not that straight line. Sometimes it's just a subtle shift, and all of a sudden something that was good becomes something evil. So that's what we have to be mindful of. Time to Kill did a good job of painting Klan as a bit. Yeah. There was a movie with, I think there was this Ben Affleck. It wasn't a very good Ben Affleck movie, but there was a kid in the Klan in it. And this guy, it's like, God, he was such a good representation of just that entitled mindset, the way he would stomp around. I can't remember the movie though, so I should move on. Yeah, I remember Time to Kill. Yeah. All right, well, that's the end of the comments. I guess I'm at an hour. I'll just sit for a second and kind of calm down. We covered some good ground just now. Let me look at this again. Oh yeah, and just I wanted to. These were the notes I left for myself before I started, and just I want everybody to recognize the DNC can do a lot more. And like this narrative, I did that post the other day. Just like, here's all the other things the DNC could be doing right now, because we've given them this power. I mean, they always complain, well, when we get a majority, you guys. And I mean, even in Kamala Harris's book, and I'm a fan of Kamala Harris. I remain one. I think people have been mad because she didn't demand recounts, but she was the VP, and the VP is in a thankless job, really. And I think she got shut down by these consultants, these racist consultants who deliberately sabotaged her. But even she was talking about how when she was in the Senate, she was frustrated by how little she could do when you're in the minority. And yeah, you're not going to get bills passed, but that's an opportunity to take control of the messaging. So, I mean, if we have these good sitting senators who want to do good things, they can come and talk to me and help me build this platform. The more people I can reach, the more we can get progressives elected at every level of government. But again, that's the problem. The DNC doesn't support this. They don't support giving power to the people. They're only really interested in their corporate donors. And I mean, yeah, they're not quite as corrupt as the Republicans, but there is a lot, and there are good Democrats, especially the ones working at state levels, like Lisa Hamline in Texas. I was so delighted to talk to her, and it felt so empowering. And one of the things that she said that they were doing, that their organization in that state, they were getting people elected at every level of the state. And what's really frustrating is that our Washington, D.C. Democrats don't support when they identify these good people. Why hasn't Stacey Abrams become like the face of the whole party? Stacey Abrams gave the Democrats control of the Senate and the House, in 2021 after the 2020 election. She should have been a superstar. We should be erecting statues to her. And they basically don't even talk about her, and they didn't step in because I feel she got her election stolen from her when she ran for governor. And these are the ongoing things that we have to fix. And I get so many people come out of the woodwork, and they're like, well, what? They're doing that. Like, they're criticizing me. Well, they are doing those things. And you're asking for too much. And it's like, they can do more. I'm up against the wall. I'm the one, and you guys are all up against the wall, scrounging to find money for food and for shelter and for healthcare and education for your kids, and fearful about the future. I have to put in these long days, work till exhaustion. These entitled people, these millionaires who have political office and who represent us and who are entitled to, state-sponsored healthcare that we don't get, even though they refuse to help the rest of us get it. They get to enjoy that. I'd like to talk to them about that. How do you like the fact that the government pays for your health care? Is that working good for you? I would like to sit down with a lot of senators and just ask those questions. And damn it, they should be coming on and talking to me. And but we see this again and again. We see that the DNC does not help with the messaging. They just surrender. Republicans, 90 miles an hour, they're going with their messaging. Every one of their representatives will jump on any old podcast and help elevate just completely ignorant beliefs and their ignorant talking points. People are always worried about that because they always mention how, the right is always in lockstep. And they feel as if we can't overcome that, but that's actually the weakness of the right. We have to kind of rephrase that in our mind. They're in lockstep because they believe a narrative rather than the facts. Their narrative of white supremacy, and that's why it's a drain. They drain down to this bottom level, this bottom feeder level, and they're all like sitting there together at the bottom, like patting each other on the back and chortling, even though they don't realize that they're the dregs of the world. They're the dregs of humanity. And again, it's that false confidence, that false charisma of like, I'm never wrong. And then the guy drives right off a cliff. And it's only after you're like, oh shit, as you fall off the cliff. And we have to change our thinking. And I mean, that's why the Democrats are out of step, critical thinkers. We have to be careful of these academic disagreements, where we approach the problem from other sides. So my experiences, as a white man, are different than the experiences of a black woman. And I spent a lot of time talking to black women to compare our experiences, and hopefully sit down. These lives have been very helpful, and just kind of smooth out, because we step on each other's trauma. And that's something we have to be careful about, because that trauma is a consequence of our misunderstanding of our own experience, and that's why too often on the left, people that should be our allies are then repulsed by us because they just don't quite see it. And we don't see their point of view and they don't see ours. And we need to have that exchange where we go forward. And we have to have grace with each other. And yeah, we need to pressure the DNC, the people with big platforms. And, AOC is doing great work. If she could jump on and talk to me for like 10 minutes, I'm sure I would get another 10,000 followers. And then after that, I could go on and I can talk to these other congressional candidates. And those additional 10,000 followers can learn that message. So this is how we build. And I just would like it. I mean, wouldn't it be great? But I did get that. I mean, I guess I'm frustrated. I would like that. I would like that to happen. But I do have to recognize the courage. Oh, somebody mentioned the webpage before, the Courage for Democracy, or the Courage Candidates. Somebody from that organization did reach out to me. So bit by bit, it is happening. I think it's happening from the ground up rather than the top down, but I guess that's what we should have expected anyway. That's how grassroots movements work. The guys with huge platforms are only going to boost those guys that are like 10% down, not like the guys that are down at the bottom with a completely different perspective. Because I do want to topple the reality that brought them there. I mean, that's just a fact. But at some point, morality has got to kick in, and we've got to recognize that we live in a nation. There you go. Thank you, Courtney. Oh, that's brilliant. CourageForDemocracy.com. Thank you for bringing that. that makes me happy. But at some point, we have to recognize, yes, we live in a nation that wastes billions of dollars, and those billions of dollars are spent blowing up schools filled with innocent little girls, and we have to do something about it. And I know it hits you, and the temptation is to just compartmentalize that, put it to the side, just say, I can't do anything about it, which isn't true. You can do small things about it. We can't change it today. But what we can do is we can commit to a path of integrity and constant positive action. And we don't have to think to ourselves. Don't put those artificial things in our mind, like, oh, it'll all be okay. And again, this was my mindset prior to the 2024 election. I was thinking, well, we'll just get Kamala in and then it'll all be okay. And then we'll keep working, because it's crushing then when you lose. We have to just resolve that this is the fight until the end of our lives. Instead of results, think of practice. And that way you can congratulate yourself every day. Did you act with integrity that day? Yes, that's a victory. Thank you. Good victory. Did you work for progress that day? Yes, that's a victory. It's like when I've run marathons, if you're just sitting there thinking about the finish line, it just becomes emotionally taxing. You have to celebrate every win. Every mile's a win. We got another mile. Yes. When you get to the markers, like, oh, that's a 10K. Yes, that's a win. We got to the halfway point. Yes, that's a win. And if you celebrate that series of wins, then you get to the ultimate win, which is the finish line. And, when the reality is the finish line is the end of our lives. So just keep celebrating every win along the way. And it'll just fortify you. It'll stop from having those moments that steal your momentum and steal your power, because you feel the illusion of an artificial loss, because you established some sort of a thing, some sort of an objective that wasn't practical, that was disconnected with reality. I have a talk coming up next week with Ellie Leonard and Libby Grant. And the idea is to talk about publishing and life after what we're going on right now and what we want to pivot to, because both, and me too, Libby, who writes as Olivia Hawker, she's a best-selling author on Amazon. But I've been chatting with her, and she's been frustrated with her writing career. And I was chatting with Ellie, and she was frustrated with her writing career. And I know I've been frustrated with my writing career too. And a big thing of it is because I think when I was 10, I came up with a model of what I thought a successful career would be. And, I haven't met that model. And so, but you become so focused on this artificial creation that you made in a time of ignorance that you disregard all the things that you do. And we have to celebrate our achievements as we go. So I'm going to try to convey that to those two brilliant women. I think that is scheduled for Tuesday. Looking forward to that. Yeah, Courtney says every person does a small thing. It adds up to a huge impact. Yep, and that's that line in The Lord of the Rings. I say that too. I believe that it's the small moments, the kindness, opening the door for people. Little things like that. And understanding the ignorance and the cruelty that dominates so much of the ideology of this country, and recognizing that all those things are a choice. They aren't inherent to the human condition. They are learned. We can make an effort so that other people aren't subjected to them, and we can teach people to abandon them and to embrace an ideology of compassion, instigate kindness. I think that's it. That's a good one for today. I'll take a second. I'll just take a couple deep breaths. Thank you, Walter. It's a brilliant way to view our path forward. Yep, it doesn't end, but fortify yourself. Celebrate every win. And there are a lot of wins. We've had a lot of wins. And every day is a win. Every day you get up. Every day you resist is a win. Celebrate your time, like Lefty Prof said, with the grandkids. Do paint a drawing with somebody. This is the life we have. And this is my prime point of life. My kids are in high school. I'm delighted in them. I love them. Yeah, go do a random act of kindness. Thank you, Courtney. That's wonderful. Yes. And I have to celebrate my kids, and that's why today I'm taking them to the water park. So I'll be off. You won't see me tomorrow morning, but my stories are pre-scheduled, so you never hear the end of me. But there's a lot going, and hopefully at some point I look forward to a day when I can just come on. Maybe I'll just be coming on a couple times a week, and I'll. Oh, great. Just booked a 2-night getaway with my husband. So maybe we'll look forward to a day when I'll just come on 2 dates a week, and I'll have a 10-page story that I'll read for you guys. And it'll be just something lovely. I did my story this week about going to the drive-in. I like writing stories like that. Just family stories, fun stuff, diversion, celebration of the human experience. I want to do that. Hopefully to provide a little insight too. That's always the goal. And every little bit of insight helps. Julie says sooner or later we all have to give up the hope for a better past. That's an interesting comment. I like that. And yeah, I mean, it is what it was, we have to just accept it. Accepting reality is kind of a big thing. And part of it is that wishful thinking. You're frustrated with people when they continually fail you. And the reason is because you haven't just taken the time to change how you think about that person. If they fail you, it's like this person is not reliable. Learn that. And we have to do that on many levels. That's a basic level. But whenever we feel that frustration, a lot of times it's because things are happening in a way that we have not programmed ourselves to anticipate, because we're living in this wishful thinking instead of in an acceptance of reality. And the more you are able to accept reality, even if it reveals that you have this just huge mountain to climb, at least now you're at a point where you're making progress. Because if you're denying what's ahead of you, you're just stumbling and falling again and again and again, and you're not making no progress. And small progress is better than no progress. Yeah, 2-night getaway. Keep writing. I will. I can do nothing but write, Diana. That's what I am. It is, but we can move forward with new knowledge. Yes. Progress. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, wonderful people. As always, I appreciate you. Seriously, do what I said. Restack and cross post. There's that cross post. You have to click one of the buttons. I did a thing explaining to people how to cross post. You can cross post an article. It gets sent then to your readers. That would be really helpful. Let's do what we can to uplift these new voices, these candidates that are willing to talk to people like me. Wouldn't it be wonderful? I mean, if through our efforts, we got just one person elected to Congress or the Senate or to governor of the state of Wisconsin. I mean, if Fran Hung gets, that would be wonderful. We can do it. There's so many things that we can do. Little actions. The actions we take today. Do not wait. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate the insights. I appreciate you being here. Good morning, Gloria. Good to see you. I hope you've been here a little while because I'm just about to round up or wrap it up. And I'm off to the water park for a night. So I'm going to try to stay off Substack for at least a day, but I'll probably be on this evening. All right, folks, thank you so much. Love you all. Appreciate the comments. You guys are great. And I appreciate that you take some time and share your time with me. I need it. Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. We'll see you later.